Happy Monday morning, everybody. Not a conversation I especially want to have with you, but I think given the events of the weekend, particularly in El Paso, we probably ought to talk a little bit about how to talk to your kids about disasters and crisis like mass shootings. Because there are a lot of ways to handle this that cause damage, and there's some ways to handle this that can ultimately help make your kid a little bit more resilient when bad things happen to them. So here's the first thing. If your child does not live in El Paso and is under the age of 8, unless there's something that they're going to interact with on a daily basis, or someone you know is involved or something like that, you probably don't need to have a conversation with them every time there's a mass shooting. Okay. In general, handing children our burdens, number one, that are scary, and number two, that they can't control, is a bad idea. When it doesn't even affect them, I would probably leave them out of it. Okay. But if you live here, they're going to hear stuff. And maybe even if you don't, they're going to hear stuff. And so how do you respond when your child asks you what's going on and what's happened? So kids under say preschool age, kindergarten age, one sentence, just a one sentence story is all they need. Okay? A bad man hurt a lot of people on Saturday. And that's why everybody's talking about all of these things. And that can be all of it. That's all that your preschooler needs to know. Answer the questions that they ask you, answer them as they are asked. So don't read into stuff. I always say this with like the birds and the bees talk too. Okay. Well, why did he hurt people? Well, he was angry. Why? I mean, the fact that he's a crazy white supremacist is sort of not the point when you're 3. If your kid is older, elementary school age to say like middle school, right up to the middle school line, they are extremely visual learners, which means that photos, sound bites, videos, they need to stay away from those. And that means you're going to have to monitor their electronics use for a while. If you're in the airport and it's playing on a TV, you want to move them away from there. If you're in a doctor's waiting room and they're playing the news, you can ask them to change the channel and explain, like, I got a kid here, can you not do this? Those kids can develop post-traumatic symptoms just from photographs and videos and stuff. So a little shielding, protect them a little bit. Give them the one sentence story, answer any questions they have, but let's keep the visuals and the audios to a minimum, because that's really where those kids tend to struggle. For our tweens, for our middle school kids, you're going to have to listen to some feelings, because they have feelings about this. There's going to be anger, there's going to be grief, there's going to be sadness if they lost someone, and there's going to be fear, okay? And you need to listen to them. And you have your own feelings too. So it's okay to share those feelings when your middle schooler tells you, I'm scared. You can say, you know, it's so am I. It's okay. But we're going to work on this together, and we're going to process this together, and we're going to think about this together, and it's going to be okay. Once your kids hit late middle school to high school, these are kids who can help take action. Okay, if they feel like they need to do something, reach out to a family that you know has been affected. Mow their lawn, help them clean their house. Whatever your kid can do to help will help them feel empowered. So the problem with post-traumatic stress symptoms is not that you saw something scary, because that happens all the time. It's that you saw something scary and you felt powerless to do anything about it, and you thought maybe your life was in danger, or maybe the life of someone you love was in danger. And giving them back that power is how we keep our older kids engaged. Now, obviously, adjust it to your kids' development. I got a 12-year-old who we're going to have to kind of go more toward the high school range because that's where he lives in that I need empowerment phase. So just think about doing this in an age-appropriate fashion, okay? But before you do any of that, you got to manage your own stuff, okay? Manage your own business. You have feelings too, and your feelings are going to leak out of every pore. And if you don't manage your feelings and put words to your emotions, how are you going to help your kid? So that's the first piece. Also, keep your routines the same as much as possible, okay? Staying home yesterday was totally reasonable, but take your kids to Walmart. I know, I get it. But when you hide in fear in your house, remember, your kids think you know everything. So when you hide, they think they need to hide, and that gets imprinted on them. But if you say, I need to keep going, I need to live my life, your kids will do the same. That's a huge amount of emotion management for parents, but it is kind of how it works. And again, look for the helpers. There are 1,000 little lessons to be learned here that are far more empowering than bad man shot people. Okay? There are people who responded from their homes on a Saturday when they could have just hung out with their families, and they went down to UMC to help with surgery on patients who volunteered their time to do this because that's what they thought was right. There are people who stood out in 105-degree heat to donate blood, which, when you live in El Paso, that's a legitimate sacrifice. That was not a good scene. There are people who started reaching out hands to help almost immediately. So in a time of crisis, you can teach your kids that mostly people are actually really, really good. And one bad guy mobilized thousands of wonderful, amazing people. And that's kind of where we have to help our kids function. Okay, so do you explain to your children what active shooters are and how to manage a situation if they are in one? You got to gauge that by your kid. Our kids are sort of exposed to this conversation probably more than is normal, because between what my husband and I do, they know the term active shooter. We've talked about these things. They know run, hide, fight. They know what their choices are. And I think as schools begin to do their active shooter drills, and this has become, schools practice lockdown, this has become part of a child's experience. You may not know that your children do this, okay, but I would almost guarantee that they do. El Paso took a view of this a long time ago, that it was not if this happened here, it was when is this going to happen here, and they were very, very prepared. All of your school nurses in EPISD, Socorro, you guys have faculty that are trained in how to use tourniquets. They know what to do to save lives if there's an active shooter, and that's going to become, it's actually been legislated for the entire state of Texas. So they will know how to handle this, okay? You can teach your kids those things too. I know it sounds weird to teach your kid how to use a tourniquet or how to lock a door with a chair, but that's the world we live in. That's where we live. I remember sort of thinking that at this point, living in the United States is probably a lot like living in Israel during the worst of the Palestinian conflict, because kids were exposed to all kinds of crazy violence and they knew how to handle all kinds of stuff, but they were still kids. Our kids can do both, but judge it by your child. Some kids can't handle that. Some can. And if you have a child that can do those things, all that much better for those who can. So yeah, my kids know how to, like, hide it and such things. Though Eli, by the way, is a terrible hider and is not allowed on my zombie apocalypse team because he just giggles through the whole thing. It's really very disturbing, actually. So look, hang in there. We're okay. Your kids are okay. Just keep it age appropriate. Answer their questions. And most important of all, do not lie. Because all you will teach your child is that when something bad happens, I can't trust my parents to tell me the truth. And that is an extremely dangerous lesson to teach. And right now, kids are going to be like little sponges and pick that stuff up. And then you really do have a problem. Okay. If you need help, if you need services, if you need anything, let me know. We've got some resources out there. There's also a whole bunch of free counseling stuff going on in El Paso. Donate blood if you can. If you are O negative, donate today. If you are not, make an appointment for later in the week because they will need you. The people who are hurt are going to need transfusions going into the future as well. And plus, we kind of used up everything we had in the city. So donate early, donate often is a good idea. And thank you to everybody who pitched in and helped on Saturday, who put themselves on the line. We could not do this without our first responders. That was really impressive to watch. As somebody who knows something about the first responder world, what happened in El Paso was really, really cool. I'm so proud of Border Rack and everybody who just pitched in and gave all this effort, knew what they were doing and worked together. Yeah, restored my faith in humanity a little bit. Have a good week. Hang in there. Let me know if you need to talk about something or if your kids are struggling. Otherwise, I'm glad you're all here, and I will talk to you later.